Hello everyone, I guess I'm going to make a tomato sauce recipe video. It all starts with the farm. I'm at Hutchins Farm, organic farm in Concord, Massachusetts. I'm just picking up some nice ripe plum tomatoes. Actually some of them were heirloom variety plums, which are supposedly meatier. I'll find out. But that's probably about 10 pounds, and here's the stand, and I'm gonna get out of the way. All right, bye. Hello everyone. Let's talk about ingredients and tools for tomato sauce. As I was driving home, I kind of realized that this is a lot more than 10 pounds, despite what I said at the farm, because I lifted this up and realized it's about as heavy as my cat, and my cat is 15 pounds. And looking at what I made yesterday or last night, that is two 32-ounce jars. So that would be 64 ounces, which would be 4 pounds divided by 16. And so I'm guessing that it's 3 to 1. In other words, 3 pounds of tomatoes will yield approximately 1 pound of tomato sauce. Other ingredients we have here, second on the list, would be onions. These are actually quite small. These are special cooking onions. They're sharper, but taste sweeter when cooked. We have also, and again, all this is from Hutchins Farm except for the basil, which is now out of season in Massachusetts, and it's all organic. Some, 5 cloves of garlic, pretty small ones, some oregano, sea salt, black pepper. We have butter as an ingredient, and we have some cheap box wine as an ingredient. We have olive oil. That's it. In terms of cooking gear, we have a pretty big stock pot. We have a roasting pan, which we're going to roast in initially. We just have a big plastic bowl to mix, and to mill the tomatoes, I actually have somewhat of a specialty tool, which I don't really advocate, but this is pretty useful. It's something from Italy, got it at Williams Sonoma. The crank is not on it, but and the cylinder that pushes through stuff with this spring-loaded paddle and forces it through a sieve as you rotate the crank. Those pieces are not on, but it's fairly simple to operate. It adheres to your countertop or flat surface with a suction cup, basically. Works pretty well. Prior to that, I didn't have one. I still made tomato sauce. Basically, I just cooked things down and just forced things through a wire colander. So, just use your hands or a big silicone spatula. It works. It's fine. Sometimes I would mix it up in a food processor so that the tomato meat would more easily go through the wire mesh of a colander, and that works fine. You don't really need much of anything to cook except something to cook in, and your hands, and a nice knife is good. I mean, this is not really a nice knife, but I keep it very sharp. It's this is a 10-inch knife from Wusthof. I've had it for a long time. I sharpen it myself. It's been around so long that because of this bolster, there started being a groove here. So I basically just took a metal cut-off tool and cut it down just so I could sharpen it right to the end here. So lesson learned: don't buy a knife with a bolster that goes through the tang to the edge of the cutting edge. So anyway, so we'll get started here, and first step is to wash and clean vegetables. Hey guys, I'm just breaking down the tomatoes now. I'm almost done actually. So what I've done is wash the tomatoes. I'm going to grab each one. I'm going to hit it twice on a towel and then quarter it like this. And then just sort of slide it right into my roasting pan, which is getting awfully full. I'm preheating my oven. Today I'm going to try 400 degrees for 2 hours and see how that goes. I'm going to keep the oven slightly ajar so that the steam can escape. I'm just going to like stick a spoon in the side of the oven and the door to let the steam escape. Oops. And I'm almost done here. So I think I'll stop right here and all right, so the next step, we're just going to season the tomatoes just before we put them in the oven. Obviously, we're gonna do salt because that's gonna help draw out the moisture. That's not really a lot of salt, but maybe a little more. So I'm just gonna mix that up with my very clean hands, and yeah, it's got enough salinity. I just stick my fingers. Okay, what else? I mean, should I put olive oil? I don't know. I am going to put some wine because what I've been told or read from Alton Brown is that alcohol interacts with the flavonoids, which is some sort of enzyme in the tomatoes to release a different flavor compound when cooking. So I do put wine in at this step, and also when I'm cooking them down in the stock pot. I think that's all that's really necessary. You could add black pepper. I don't think I would add spices here. You could, but I've moved to frying the spices in olive oil in the stock pot prior to adding the tomatoes and even the onions. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. So yeah, I mean, if you want to, fine. You know, we can put olive oil. It'll help caramelize the surface of the tomatoes as it's cooking in high heat in the oven. But again, not necessary. But just to demonstrate and to get my hands really greasy, we'll do it. You know, and you can see there's a lot of water down there. And hopefully we're gonna cook that off during the oven baking cooking process. All right, make sure to have a towel around your shoulder or hanging off your waist while you're doing this kind of stuff, so you can wipe your hands and hit pause on video. So the tomatoes are in the oven. They're roasting at 400. Yeah, that's what I did, 400. So while I have this time, they're going to be in there for 2 hours. So it's time to do other things like onions. So this is the way I do onions. I trim the top, put it on down. It's nice and flat, so it's not going to roll. Cut this in half. You can use your knife or whatever to peel the skin, or if it's easy enough, just get the skin off your shelf. This is a really finicky skin, so maybe I will utilize my knife to get through this a little more quickly. This is a Japanese single-sided knife, so this is not the best knife to do that because the bevel only goes this way. Anyway, once that's through, so I'm gonna just go through it like this. I accidentally cut these pieces off. So notice that my blade never really leaves my fingers, so they don't. I don't cut, lift, cut, lift, cut, lift. No, just keep your fingers on the blade, and you'll never have to cut yourself again, basically. All right, so that's pretty much the deal with the onions. Obviously, if you don't want to cry, have a sharp knife. Don't put your head right over the onion. Jacques Pepin, who does this very similarly, he takes this extra step of cutting it laterally before going into the final dice. So that's about it. These two I'm gonna actually roast. So I'm gonna stick these in with the tomatoes now, so they can get caramelized. Just stick them in as is. All right. Oops. I guess it's time for garlic, and I have my own little technique for that too. So it's pretty conventional in terms of, cut off the ends here, and Jacques Pepin again, he's the best at demonstrating this. But, so he'll whack it like this, he'll whack it like this, and he'll whack it like this. And it's very easy to remove the skins of the garlic. They're just supposed to fall out. I obviously did not hit it this hard, and it's because I'm not as good as he. So I cheat. So I got this, and this is some terrible old meat cleaver that never gets very sharp, but it's good for this. And because look at that, just bang, and their garlic is pretty much out of there. So I love this cleaver. I keep it around just for garlic. But wait, there's more. So okay, what I love about this, and garlic, Jacques does this with a regular cooking knife, but this is a little more brutal. And let's see here. It just so happens that the curvature of this cleaver is perfect for making mincemeat of garlic. And as I start to do this, I can really smell it. The essential oils from it are really coming through. Notice how it sticks to the board, not to the knife. And this is the best way to mince garlic. I don't know if I should have cut it this soon because I have like 2 hours to wait, but that's pretty much it. Okay, so it ended up being 2 hours, 420 degrees. So 420, it's an easy to remember number. Not that I partake of that. So let's see what we have. Yeah, so during most of the cooking process, the pan was so hot that basically it was boiling. and driving off a lot of water. So it's still quite watery, but this is about right. So we're gonna let this cool down and start milling the tomatoes. But first, we're going to finish up with the onions. This is a bit of a fancy extra step. I did dice the onions earlier, but I don't like the texture of onion pieces in my tomato sauce, so I take this extra step of pureeing them. It seems a little silly, but I also, roasted a couple of these onions in the oven along with the tomatoes. I took them out about an hour in, and just for a little extra dimension in the sauce. The roasting, it definitely takes away from the raw onion flavor of it, but in exchange we get sweetness. So just gonna trim the stem off and the ends here. I suppose I could just throw them in, but my experience is that they don't break up as well in the food processor because they're kind of elastic and they just don't chop very well. So it's a little hard to cut because it's kind of hot, but I can't believe it's still hot. It's like an hour later. But all right, so I'm gonna spare you from the actual demonstration of blending it in the food processor because it's quite noisy and we don't really need that. But in a moment, we'll get to the food milling of the tomatoes. All right. So this is the kind of fun part, the tomato milling process, separating the skins and the seeds from the flesh. So this is the tomato mill. It's actually the roasting pan. I roasted the tomatoes in. I just rinsed it out really quickly. As I said before, it stays on the suction cup, so it doesn't move. Of course, this isn't obviously ideal. I've just taped this bag in here to collect the skins and seeds, and as you'll see, I will actually mill the same tomatoes like 3-4 times because I want to extract as much of the flesh as possible. Just to give you an idea, this is just a saucepan to collect. It's kind of cool, right? It's kind of fun. This batch doesn't look very red, but we will take care of that. Yeah, it's a bit messy, so that's kind of why I decided to sort of place everything inside this roasting pan. Definitely wear an old t-shirt. Don't wear white. It gets splashy and drippy and so forth. So, all right. Well, you guys get the gist. Obviously, when this fills up, you're just gonna dump it in another collection bowl. So, okay. See you guys later. All right, now it's time to cook. So I've actually, taste tested the tomatoes. So you should always taste as you cook. That's when you can make your adjustments, and if something's off, maybe you can compensate for it.
like, let's say I tasted this and I decided the tomatoes are like super sour. You know, what am I gonna do? Maybe I'll substitute cherry instead of wine, or totally cheat and add sugar. Although I actually would never do that. But as it is, I think the tomatoes are great. And what I've got is a preheated pan. You should always preheat your pan before adding the oil. It definitely helps food not stick to the bottom of the pan, because as the super hot metal kind of it makes a thin film with the oil. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to saute my spices first. That's the oregano. I'm going to saute black pepper. This stuff is basically almost burning, but I got my heat very carefully calibrated so that it doesn't burn. It's definitely at the smoking point, so be careful. And the reason why I am frying, what is wrong with this salt? With this pepper mill. The reason why is because frying as a way of bringing out the essential oils in many ingredients. And I'm also gonna saute the basil, but I don't really need to saute the basil. It's kind of like I'm deep frying the basil. And what it does is I don't know if you ever deep fried kale or spinach or any kind of green, but it tends to maintain the color much better. And again, the essential oil from the basil is going to infuse the olive oil much better than if you were to just dump spices in the midst of, boiling water, essentially. So, okay, so some of these are turning dark green, and that's my cue to add my pureed onions. Because I don't want to completely crisp up my basil. And it's smelling pretty nice. There we go. Get that last little bit in there. Spatulas are wonderful for this purpose, to get every little bit, last bit. The onions have cooled down things quite significantly, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get in there, but maybe I'll just do this. Does that work? I don't know. It's my first video, give me a break. It's kind of coming back up. I did forget something. I totally forgot something, and that's butter. It's a lot of butter, maybe too much butter. But butter is butter adds yet another thing to this, and in addition to oils, it has proteins. It can add more texture. I didn't do it at the right time. I should have done it between the oregano and black pepper and the basil, so that the butter could have sort of cauterized a bit and got some of that what they call what is that term? It starts with a B. I forget. I'm sorry. I'm not a professional, I just do this at home. Anyway, well, mistake. We all make mistakes. So maybe I'll turn up the heat a little bit, and you can see that this is a solid copper pan. This thing weighs about, I don't know, about 15 pounds. It retains heat very well. The heat distribution is excellent. It's made by a company called, what's their name? I am forgetting all kinds of stuff today. I forget. It's French. It's really good. You can't buy it. You'll never find it at Williams-Sonoma, so I should just stop talking about it. Okay, so I am kind of missing my garlic. This looks strange, right? All right, so I dumped my garlic in there. Unlike the herbs and the onions, I actually don't want to cook down my garlic too well, because I just like the raw, the powerful taste of garlic, and if you fry it too long, you will lose it. So this is looking good. Little taste. It's definitely very garlicky and very sweet from the onions, and that's because I roasted 2 of them in the oven. So I'm just gonna wait for the garlic flavor to tone down just a little bit, and hopefully, oh yeah, that's nice. It's actually getting a little roasty garlic. All right, here goes the tomatoes. And that's it, we're done. No, I'm just kidding. But I am gonna let this come to boil and come back in a few. All right. So this has been simmering for 15 minutes. It's looking okay. Not quite what I want. And it's really just about the color. It tastes great. I've sampled it a couple of times, and it's a little watery, but the actual flesh of the tomato it's about 3 millimeters, so not even like 1/8 of an inch below the surface of the simmering water. So that's about right. That's about right. And if we actually were to stir this, we actually see tomato sauce. I mean, I could boil this more if I wanted to. It depends on how thick you like your tomato sauce, but this is fine. Again, for me, this looks pretty orange, and it's probably because I mixed this in with some heirloom plum tomatoes, which tastes great, but not the color. So what we're gonna do is something I sort of figured out by myself, but it was inspired by J. Kenji Alt of Serious Eats, and he wrote this great book, Food Lab, and he's great. You should look him up. So I very simply just broil this. So I stick this in the oven underneath the broiler for about 15 minutes. And what happens, we'll see it later, is that the entire surface starts caramelizing and it gets extremely red. And that'll fix up the color for us and also deepen the flavor. A couple of things I didn't mention last time was that the oregano, before
I put it in. I like to sort of crush it between my fingers multiple times to release the essential oil from it. And you know, oregano is a pretty stiff or hard herb, so I like to break it down so you don't have like oregano particulates in your between your teeth when you're eating and stuff. But it's just better anyway. Also, I forgot to discuss that the yield. So we started out with around 15 pounds of tomatoes, and I estimated before I dumped the tomatoes into the stock pot that it was about half. And yesterday I thought it was about a third. So I guess your yield is going to be somewhere between a third and a half. I mean, it's getting closer to a half now than a third now that I've been cooking, but you should know that. All right, I'm gonna stop this video. What I'm gonna do is stick it in the broiler. I'm gonna stick it and watch it. Actually, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna leave the oven door slightly ajar and watch as the surface bubbles, and want to make sure that I don't completely burn the sauce. If it does burn, it's okay. You can just kind of scrape it off. So, but I've never done that, but it's a safe process. And all right, so let's do that. All right, I think this is the last video. So we just took it out of the broiler oven, and we see that I pretty much left it in for about 15 minutes. The top is very red. I almost burned it. That's okay, it's a little flavor. And again, you know, look at the surface, look at underneath, slight difference in color, and hopefully when I stir this up, it's going to be the color I want. It's not really quite there. I mean, I could do this again if I wanted to, and keep going, but I don't know. Is it pleasing enough? I don't know. I'll decide. But for comparison's sake, I will show you something from last night that I bottled, and you know, that is much. It's different. I mean, it's more red, but that was because this is all because I went to the same farm, but I used two varieties of tomatoes today, and just one last night. So, you know, different tomatoes, different results. I think I'll live with this because it actually tastes delicious, and it doesn't have to be red. So, all right. I think I'll skip the canning. I'm not very good about it. I just stick my glass jars in the oven for, you know, and heat them up for 20 minutes. You know, at least 200 degrees. You can go higher than that. It's just a matter of how much heat you think you can go without shattering the glass inside your oven. I actually heated the oven up to 400 degrees before I baked the oven, and I accidentally had two jars in there and they didn't break, so I guess it's fine. All right, you can salt to taste. Do any last minute adjustments. Again, stick it back under the broiler if you want more color. But that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it, and you know, thanks to Alton Brown for the idea to roast the tomatoes in the oven. Thanks to J. Kenji Alt, whose Uber recipe I simplified a bit, And thanks to Jacques for his lifetime of technique. See you guys.